So hi, today on Founders HQ we have Craig Wylie, and he's with Arthur D. Little USA, and he's a managing director, I believe, partner, and he is celebrating a 10-year anniversary, I understand. So I just wanted to say
10
congratulations.
years last week,
Excellent.
2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago.
Wonderful, wonderful. And on that, you had went from, I believe there was two, you and a colleague, and now you're 92 strong, and you've really grown and developed your organization. Arthur D. Little always had kind of it was a premier consulting firm, and I think it might have gone through a little bit of a downturn, and then you arrived at a certain time, and right person at the right place, and so now you've brought it to a really strong level. And one of the things I think I read that you wrote was something like that you have all brilliant consultants with technical depth and real impact for your clients. So I think that's important. Which is, I think I'll definitely dive into a little bit more about how your relationship with your consultants and your business partners, and how, and the next motto kind of explains that, is building a business through your people. So I think that's a really important thing about that separates ADL from other organizations sometimes. So otherwise, there's other things. You're helping businesses across all sorts of different business sectors. One of the things, though, that I want to mention is that you said we help people across, or maybe it's in your website, we help people across multiple industries look at their businesses in a new light, capitalizing on the possibilities of the future while managing the challenges of today. So, and aerospace, defense, automobile, chemicals, energy, utilities, resources, financial services, healthcare, life sciences, industrial goods, telecommunications, travel, and transportation.
We don't do all of that in the US yet, right?
Oh, okay.
With 92 people, we have to focus a little bit more, right?
So
But
you have a bit more concentrated.
yeah, we do.
Yes.
Although our ambition is eventually we will do the full portfolio of Arthur D. Little ADL solutions. But in the US, we focus primarily on life sciences, aviation, particularly airports, telecommunications, data centers, and infrastructure, media, and automotive and manufacturing. Right, those are the 5 areas that we really focus on. So we don't really do the financial services. We don't really do some of the other.
But that's what you concentrate. That's like your
Yeah, but you move there, right? But you can't possibly. You have to have some level of focus, right? If you go to clients and say we can do anything, and they say how many people are there, and we go 2. It's not exactly credible, right? So
you had to start somewhere, right?
So it's So when we start, let me give you a little bit of the history, right?
Sure, love that.
So Arthur D. Little had a financial crisis following the year 2000. We did very well in the year 2000. All set up for growth, overgrew, overpromised, a cash crisis in 2002, which forced it into the bankruptcy courts in the US and saw the company sold off. Outside the US, it was bought by a company called Altran, which was an engineering consultancy. But the US, where all the liabilities lay, effectively, bits of it were sold to other consulting firms. Large numbers of people left as teams. So it was every different way it could disintegrate, right? And then in 2012, Altran decided that ADL outside the US was not really what they had wanted after all. And they were changing their own strategy. They were looking for an acquisition of themselves. They were clearing the decks, usual stuff. And therefore, they decided to sell Arthur D. Little off. Right. The remaining partners from the original ADL got wind of this and decided to make a bid. They were one of the potential buyers.
Okay.
And that bid was successful. There were lots of advantages to Altran to sell the company to its staff. Because it was a French company, there are lots of employee rights that are common in France and Europe, which are a little bit unusual for us here in the US. But there was a lot of risk factors which made it very reasonable for them to sell it to the remaining partners, and that was done. And Altran was an extremely good owner. So even during the transaction, they helped underwrite the cash situation. There was they were very, very positive. It wasn't a sort of, stay
hands off and walk
right?
away.
It was a very well managed, very professionally managed, benign separation of the two businesses. And then about 3 years later, they decided to re-engage in the US, right? They had got out from underneath any debt. They were completely profitable. There was no remaining debt. Altran had exited, and they then said, okay, now we're going to reinvest in the US. They approached, I'm sure they approached a number of people, but I'm the one who said yes. And they said, basically they made you an offer you just can't refuse, but in a good way, right? Which was, come on board and build a consulting company the way you would like it built, but with somebody else's money. And we've done that, right? So the first 3 years was a fairly heavy investment. I mean, it was difficult to break even in the first couple of years. But since then, we've been profitable inside the market every single year. And we've gone from the original 2 people who transferred together from our previous employer about this morning, I think about 94.
Oh, so you hired a few people.
So we're still growing.
Wonderful.
So 94 people as of this morning, with an ambition to grow a lot more. We're averaging about 35 to 40% CAGR over the last 10 years. We should, if we continue that, we should hit about, about 300 people. Around about 2031, something of that nature. And that, I think, is our original goal, was that we had to be relevant. And we decided that when we decided what did that mean, well, that relevant meant we had to have about 300 people. Less than 300 people inside the US market, and you could be profitable, but you're not relevant to the market. They want actually to be relevant. And therefore, our goal remains, over the next 5 or 6 years, that we get to that sort of 300 people.
Would you say that's like your main goal, of the company at this point?
The main goal is that I do it profitably.
That's a good.
Profitable at 300 people, not 300 people.
Not
right?
300 people that are just. Yeah.
It's very clear that the goal is that it's done profitably, not just for growth.
How do you? I mean, because that is heavy in terms of the infrastructure, that you have 300 pretty high qualified consultants, right? That are full-time employees, etc. You're carrying a heavy load in terms of payroll, all that stuff. How do you manage it? How do you know that you have enough inflow of new opportunities for clients, etc.? We talked a little bit on our pre-call that you really find your clients through it's kind of old school in terms of networking, relationships, and that you really stick with the people.
We are not big enough to compete with the companies that we compete against in terms of solutions. But if I can't go up against McKinsey or BCG head to head. It's simply an impossibility, right? If they could put more people on a bid than I have, right? If they really wanted to, right? So there's no point trying to do that, right? So we took a decision. It sounds like perfect decision making. Of course, we had to learn the hard way that we couldn't go up against them head to head, right? So let's be very
hard knocks.
There's the pain involved in this, right? But but when I was a principal, a senior non-partner at KPMG, one of my partners had said, Craig, when you're banging your head against a wall, it's rarely a good idea to bang harder. So we decided to take a different approach, right? Which was we changed our client focus away from tier 1 accounts to individuals that we knew well, right? People who did not consider as a risk at the individual level. They weren't looking at Arthur D. Little. They were looking at the people that they had worked with in the past and felt that it was no risk working with me or with one of the others because they had worked with us extensively in the past and were prepared to fight that battle with us. So rather than bidding for major pieces of work at major tier one clients, we went after the individuals, and that has remained our strategy. So we follow the people, not the...
And that strategy has obviously the people that you select to hire into.
Well, that's a major part of the hiring decision.
Isn't it?
I have a network that can work with, right? We learned the hard way that having that network, the ability to phone somebody up who's at CEO -1, CEO -2, maybe CEO -3, the ability to talk to those people and them to have worked with you extensively in the past was a key success factor. And I don't particularly want to hire people who aren't going to, nobody wants to be unsuccessful. They don't want it, I don't want it, nobody wants that, right? So we decided after about our first 12 months that really the future hiring of senior staff had to be people who had the ability to simply phone somebody up and go and have a coffee or go and have a beer or sit in a meeting with them, and they would take the meeting. That was more important than who the client was.
And obviously those CEOs have to be in businesses that align with your
it had to be something
focus,
we had to
right? That you have expertise in.
One of the things that Arthur did, and obviously he's long gone, but one of the things that Arthur did, which I think has resonated, and it resonated well with me when they were pitching the idea to me of joining, but also when you look at the other parts of the organization, it's very present in there. He had this belief that real success came from deep technical understanding combined with the ability to answer the big problems of the day, right? So we hire fewer generalists. We're looking for people who have some sort of deep expertise around something, and again, that may change over time. When you get to a certain size, generalists might become a good idea, right? This is not a religious thing, right? But it's a sort of, it's a general.
It's working. It's working for you right now.
So far, right? But I'm up for changing it when we have to. But generally speaking, what we're looking for here is people who could go in. I would much rather go and talk to the head of R&D about innovation than perhaps the CEO about stuff. Right, so we're very prepared to go and work with the very heavy technical components of our client base, and people who are at a very senior level can have a decent conversation about the challenges facing them. So we go and talk to airport directors around what are they going to do about electrification. And we've got electric airplanes, we've got all the tugs and ground handling, all the we have people who talk about all of that at a fairly detailed level, in a way that the airport CEO gets that, right? Personally, I've run clinical trials. I've been part of companies that have been part of clinical trials. The team I've got have safety, clinical trials, oncology expertise at a very senior level. We go in and talk to people about running clinical trials in oncology. They're talking to people who understand. They don't have to teach us all those things. They have to tell us about their problem, but not about the general problem. And that just gives us an advantage. Firstly, we get up to speed much faster, right? And we are cheaper because we don't have to bring a whole load of generalists in and teach them that. But we're cheaper, but without actually being cheaper. Our individuals are the same pricing as you would find any of the major.
You just may not need as many.
Just don't need as many or as long to get up to speed, right? So the projects become more cost effective rather than cheaper, right?
That
so
makes
the
sense.
model has worked really well. The other thing that Arthur said, and which we carry forward as something which I really enjoy, it sounds a little bit trite, but actually it works exceptionally well, which is, he had this phrase, which is, who said it can't be done? Right, and if we follow that, you get into the situation. Well, why not? Why shouldn't we just find a way to do that, right? And so again, if I look at my particular area of clinical trials, right? everybody said you can't do consulting in clinical trials. Why? Because you don't understand the science as well as the pharmaceutical company. That's absolutely true. You can't speed up a clinical trial. That's absolutely true to an extent, because I can't change the biology just by being clever or innovative, right? The biology is the biology. But when you look hard at it, there is all sorts of stuff that goes on around the outside. But nobody has ever really tried to improve because, well, you can't change it. There's this assumption that it can't be done. Yet we make over half of our revenue by working with people to say, that clinical trial, we can speed that up. And not by a week or two, but by months.
Wow. That's
right?
impressive. And it's...
And we can do it because we say, okay, there's all these other bits which you've ignored, and that can be speeded up, and we can find a way of doing that, and we don't do it the way it was done before, because clearly that leads you to where you are now. So let's find a way. And again,
do you approach them? Is at that stage? Is that where you're already engaged, or there are clients, or is it a point where you're preparing?
This is the power of knowing the people, because it's all based. You can go out for a meal with the head of R&D at a pharma company, and they go, and I go, yeah, but that's rubbish. And they'll listen to you, right? If you said that to someone who didn't know, if you sent them a PowerPoint and said, you're talking rubbish, they'd just be thrown out, right? But because the network is everything for us, those people say, listen, they say, well, why'd you say that? That's, and go, okay, it's rubbish because you're only looking at this problem, but there are these things which you've ignored, and actually there's time there if you put your mind.
And this is what you as consultants, I mean, your team, that's your kind of like superpower in a sense, in terms of being able to look at a problem that other people may just assume are not resolvable, or they don't even, they're so tunnel vision on their...
Exactly. The general accepted principle is that can't be done, but actually, because we're expert enough to have a detailed conversation, it can, well, bits of it can be done. Right now, I can't change biology.
Right.
But I can do a whole load of other stuff. Yeah, if you look at clinical trials, 80% of clinical trials are late. Right? Why?
Okay.
Why are they late? Well, the answer is, well, twofold. One, planning of clinical trials is very, very... people are perhaps a little bit used to it being late, and therefore they're not
a certain pace. They're not
challenging themselves, right?
Right.
Stop doing that and start challenging yourself. And B, at the end of the clinical trial, the handling of the data is, again, because that's not their primary business. The primary business is caring for patients. Is again not perhaps as they're not challenging themselves enough in a way. So at either end of the clinical trial, you can do things. You can't change the biology, but I can change the bits at either end, and that is what we do. And that, you should look at that in aviation. Well, why can't you attract a major airline to my airport? Well, you can. There are just ways of doing it, right? It's not. Now, the airlines have huge teams who say, where should we be flying to? But what we went and we said to the airports is, you can be helping them. If you make their life easy, they're going to look at you, right? Because
that makes total sense.
Right? So we set up organizations, we help the airports become more attractive. Rather than saying we're going to go and talk to the airline, we're going to go and talk to Delta or British Airways or Qantas. We go talk to the airports and say, how do you make yourself attractive to that airline?
Yeah.
Right.
So that's brilliant. Yeah.
And then the airlines, they are attracted, right? So you can change things around there. Right? So that's the sort of thing. Don't look at the problem that everybody says is the problem. Look around the problem, know the area, and say, actually, why can't we do that? And the answer is you often.
That's fascinating. Yeah, I don't think I think your focus and your business, in a sense, solving things that other people can't see. I mean, it seems like that is a powerful capability that is probably lacking in a lot of places.
Well, So look at how this works, though, right? I mean, and it all sort of, and again, this sounds like a massively successful pre-thought plan. Turns out that we only realize this afterwards, right? So let's just be entirely honest about our own intellectual clarity. We're
Yeah.
great at looking backwards at times, and we're going, oh, hey, look what happened. But if you think about this, we're hiring people who are experts. We're saying we'll look at places that don't work, and we don't do RFP results. Well, of course, we do RFP results, but we don't start with the RFP. We start with the person. Okay. Now, if you think about an RFP coming out, what happens with an RFP? Somebody says, we need to do this. So they write an RFP, they send it out, you respond to it, right? But the point is, if they've spent their entire career looking at the problem from one direction, the RFPs will all be from that.
Right.
If you come at it and say, actually, we shouldn't be doing that before they send out the RFP, because actually there's an opportunity there and over here and sideways there, then the RFPs come out in a much more creative way, and actually we're very well positioned to then address that. So standard RFPs coming out of purchasing, they are looking at the standard problems that everybody knows there are problems, and people are not thinking around the outside. You need to get to the people before the RFP. You need to be setting the agenda. You need to be looking around the outside.
And the only way to do that is by having the relationships that you
and to know what you're doing and to have the
and to know what you're doing, and to
the people have to trust you to have that conversation, because
right.
otherwise, what right do you have? Right?
Yeah, no, that's amazing, because it's like you said, you're going up against the big four or whatever.
Well, primarily BCG, McKinsey, then a lot of larger LEK, Oliver Wyman, Rodenberger, a lot of the larger, boutique-like companies. Actually, Big Four, we now know that we did at the beginning go up against Big Four, but we stopped. We now no longer approach those problems. They're going after a different set of problems. Yeah, they're going, yes, I can put 100 people on the ground to solve your supply chain problem. Well, I can't, so let's not fight that problem.
Yeah. So you're looking, because one of the things I think I wrote down was that you're looking for really, well, we're kind of discussing it in a sense, very specialized technical projects and content. And if you don't do it, you cease to exist.
That's correct.
I don't know if you remember hearing me, you said that.
Right, exactly. We're looking for existential projects where you have to do this, right? Because otherwise you're just going to become boring and eventually irrelevant, and you will get bored or effectively vanish effectively, right? So we're looking for existential work. How do I take a clinical trial that's supposed to last 4 years and make it last 3 years? That's really hard, right? But there are ways to do that, right?
Yeah.
How do I take an airport which is a major US city and attract an international airline from Asia? Because that's what we want to do. How do we do that, right? And because doing that is going to change the entire nature of that, not just the airport, but the whole metropolitan area.
Exactly, right? The whole community, yeah.
The whole community. It brings inward investment. There are people turning out. There's tourism. There's businesses. There's all sorts of things happening because we now have a direct flight from Taipei, right?
Exactly.
And that's the sort of thing that we can.
That's incredible. Wow. It's interesting. I'm just trying to think of because it's like you have a very clear plan. I mean, as far as it's not and it's not traditional, and it's not it's founded on, you've proven that this model works in terms of your whole business, the way
at our scale,
yes.
Right? This is something that we reevaluate on a regular basis, right? Because I think we fully recognize that, let's be honest, BCG, McKinsey, Bain, LEK, they do very well. Their business model is not broken, right? There will come a point where we might need to migrate a little bit more towards that. But for the time being, I said, don't beat your head against a brick wall.
Yeah.
You find a different way.
So as you hire more staff to meet your goals for 2031, is it something that I think we talked a little bit about adding more different niches to focus on that are outside maybe the scope you're looking at today? What are some of the areas that you want to explore?
So we've decided that we won't go into financial services until we're over 200 people, right? So that's a few years away. We're not looking at it. It's just you're in New York. That's an enormously heavily consultative business. We need to bring some scale to that very quickly. So we would be at that point looking for some sort of acquisition of a team or a small business rather than growing it ourselves. So there's areas which we are looking at. We're looking very closely at whether we can do CPG, consumer packaged goods.
Okay.
All right. There is obviously there's extremely big business in the US, but it's also one of the very few businesses which is Pan American.
Okay.
Right. And we're interested in maybe what could we do in Mexico? What could we do in Colombia? What could we do in Canada? Without actually having to have radically different businesses, right? And that and automotive are very heavily networked across the Americas. So, so significant investment going into automotive, though clearly the tariff situation at the moment is making that a little bit uncertain, but we're going after it. That will resolve. And when it's resolved, we want to be ready for that. So we're continuing our direction and investment in that space. And then we're looking at perhaps CPG, as another Pan America opportunity where we can handle the complexities that are coming from the current administration and the change in the global networks. And it's not just the US, right? I mean, things are changing all over the world in terms of this space. We are saying, okay, let's be ready for what that means for our clients. One of the things we think that will mean will be more Pan American infrastructure and Pan American supply chain and value chain issues. So we're trying.
Do you feel that those areas are just less evolved, I guess, in terms of?
No, I don't think they're less evolved. I think it's been a stable environment for a decade, and therefore they have settled into a way of working. And somebody's basically kicked the wasp's nest, and it's going to have to find a new stable point, right? So I think they're perfectly evolved for last year, and they're not evolved for next year, right? So, and I think
this is where your firm could, really assist in that.
And I'm sure many others are looking at this too, right? This is when you get this level of disruption, that's where people need help. If you've been doing the same thing for 20 years and you're doing it very successfully, you don't need a consultant to come in and tell you you're doing it very successfully. But if something's changed radically, then that's what we should do. So I think that sort of Pan America model, the ADL model, is not unique, but basically there is no disadvantage to multi-country projects, right? The various P&Ls, the partner reward models are all effectively transparent to multi-country. So there's no need for me to sit in the US and go, well, that's mine. You can't have that revenue. That doesn't really make any sense, right? So for me to say, okay, we're now working with the team in Bogota and the team in Mexico City and the team in Toronto makes perfect sense. There is no downside to us, right? So I think again that's a nice piece of design that was done by the original people back in 2012 when they bought the business out, and I think that's worked very well for us in terms of creating a more flexible environment. There's no advantage or disadvantage to me using people outside the US. Well, why not do it?
Yeah, excellent. And how because of you were talking about changing environment, what's happening in the world today. How are you incorporating technology, especially like artificial intelligence, et cetera, into your organization? And
so everybody's talking about AI all the time, right? I think, and there's no doubt that it's changing things, right? So I think some of it's hype, a lot of it's real. Right, there really is a sea change of what's going on, and a sea change of expectations. The challenge I've got is, again, we've got a stable environment in consulting, not just ADL, in consulting in general. We hire juniors; those juniors spend time going to meetings, taking notes, listening, and they build up. No client's going to.
Right.
Why would I pay a junior consultant to take notes when teams will do that for me? right?
Right.
Or Zoom will
Yeah.
do it for me, right? Or there's a dozen Otter, there's a dozen third-party products you can, read.ai. These are all
I
there,
know. I know. Yeah. It's
right?
it's changing the world. Yeah.
But
And
I
that's kind
why
of
would I
like,
pay a consultant to do that where I can have it for
yeah.
basically nothing? Uh,
Right. And I think there's depths to what's happening in technology that people people don't fully understand the, how it can also for businesses to be able to incorporate it in their business without being a threat to like replacing people, but really looking at how do we maximize the employees' time, that, as far as like how do they spend their time not doing tasks that can be done automatically versus they can just focus on what their, you know
yeah. Well,
most
and I also think
maximum capability.
also junior consultants also spend a lot of their time doing research, right?
Right.
But again, I can trigger a deep research analysis in OpenAI and get
Yes.
something which is I get something in half an hour, which is as good as something that would take a junior consultant a week to do, right? So again,
Exactly.
we cannot continue just therefore doing what we always used to do. Now, clearly, there are risks with AI generated content. Sometimes they will make stuff up, and
Yeah.
so there is, you can't remove it entirely. Somebody's going to have to check it to make sure it's correct.
Yeah.
But to give you an example, one of our clients had a 25-day process, which was around selecting hospitals for a particular time. We have built a combination of workflow and AI, which takes that down to about 30 seconds.
Wonderful. Amazing. Yeah.
But you then need to spend 2 days checking, right? But it's not 25 days,
Right.
right? So yes, it's 30 seconds, but it's not really 30 seconds. It's actually now 2 days because somebody now has to go in and
Which is
go,
still
it's right, right?
tremendous savings in time. Yeah.
Oh yeah, so orders of magnitude faster.
Yes. Yes.
But you should not just say, well, it's 30 seconds. It's
It's
not
done.
30
It's
seconds. You've
done. Yeah.
still got to check it, right? So
Yeah.
there's an aspect of that. So we're changing our recruiting model. So this is the last year, the 2025 is the last year of our old recruiting model. 2026 is the first year of the new recruiting model. We've not been recruiting MBAs in the past because we're looking for deep technical expertise rather than deep generalists. So we tend to recruit graduates and MSCs and PhDs has been our
Yes.
focus, right? With the technical expertise. We are reducing the number of graduates and increasing the number of more senior people that we're recruiting. So we are moving away from the pyramid model. All right, and we're going to have a narrower base. It's going to thicken out. It's more like an upside down diamond, right? So it's going to be narrow and then come back in, right? So the middle is midlife thickening, right? We all face that problem. Well, I face it, right? So we're going to be starting to increase that more, slightly more senior level, and we're going to be looking to accelerate our juniors instead of taking 2 to 3 years to reach the next low career stage.
Yeah.
We're going to try and do it in a year.
Oh wow.
So that means we're now. This morning, I was looking at a new training curriculum, which is an extremely intense 1 year long training curriculum for our juniors to. So how do you take a 1 year, a 3 years, and make it 1 year? What are they missing? They're missing the client interaction. They don't have time to learn about people. They can learn about the technology, but the people is tough. So we're in the process of developing a new 1 year long curriculum, which will kick in around about April next year when the next load of people enter.
Wow.
And that will be designed to take those people through the whole of the junior grade in 12 to 18 months as opposed to 2 to 3 years. We'll see how that works. But that's a big change for us, right? We're going to have to really accelerate how people move through the business. We can't just be saying, we've got an army of juniors. It's not going to work anymore. Our clients won't.
Yeah.
But why would the client pay our juniors to do it when they can trigger a deep research themselves and get an almost as good answer?
Yeah.
So,
wow. Big, yeah, but it sounds like you're already incorporating and using it where.
and I'm sure every other major consulting company is also looking at this, right? It's got to be a big change. And so, when I've got people who come to us for career guidance, sometimes I say, look, do a master's. You need the extra, focus on something. Don't be just a graduate. Be somebody with a little bit more, because you've become much more employable if you've got a strong master's. So that definitely a change in the way we're going to be building
moving forward. Yeah, wonderful. Well, I mean, we covered a lot of ground. Is there any last minute things that you'd like to say, or just in terms of?
I think the last thing that we'd say is we had the opportunity when we set this business up to build a culture the way we wanted it built. It's not the same culture as, you're going to do 60, 70, 80-hour weeks. It's not a sweatshop. It's designed to value the people. It's all built into the same thing, right? It's about networking. It's about technical expertise. Mm-hmm. The only route to market that we have is our people. Therefore, we treat our people as our channel and treat them effectively. So if somebody leaves the organization, I've lost that channel. Right? Now, so what does that mean? It means that we don't want them to leave. So we have so we've set this up to be much more attractive for people to stay. There's really strong training. There's a good reason to stay. We do look after people. We invest in them heavily. And when they do leave, we look after them after they go. And that creates a very low turnover. Which is so our turnover is around, our regretted turnover is about 4% a year, which is a quarter of the industry standard. And that saves us millions of dollars of effort and time and recruiting fees and costs.
Training, all that.
And we're really trying to use that to build the business, right? Change the culture so that you treat the people as the channel. And then everything I've said around the networking, the expertise, it all falls into that. Mm-hmm. And that sort of treat the people first, look after your people first, they will look after the clients, is a model which we very cheerfully stole from Richard Branson. And it works extremely well for us without any apology. We think, that works really well. We're doing that, right? So, we found that's worked extremely well for us.
Yes, I can't imagine it will not do anything but keep.
And that won't be
the same results.
Don't plan to change, right? Exactly. Yeah. That's very well.
That's great. And I mean, employees want to feel like their management, the culture, everything supports what they're trying to do.
You go onto the Vault or you go onto Reddit. Now you understand that these organizations, these websites are full of people who are annoyed, right? Happy people are not supposed.
They don't spend the time doing that stuff,
right? But there's enough people who are annoyed and upset and stressed that I'm thinking, I love what I do. I love being a consultant. Why are these people so unhappy? It's a tragedy. That these people are unhappy. So again, we said, okay, well, who said that can't be? Who said you can't run a consulting firm where people are actually satisfied with it, right? And it's what we want to do.
Yeah. Well, you've done it. Great. Yes, absolutely. It's been a huge pleasure having you on this podcast today, and I wish you continued success. I look forward to following kind of the evolution of it and see where you are in 2031.
I'm grateful for this. I'm looking forward to the next 10 years. I'll probably be retired by then. But let's look there. I'm looking forward to the next 4 or 5 years, and then somebody else.
Whatever. It seems like you have a lot of energy. You'll be. I wouldn't be surprised if you're still at the helm or whatever. So. But anyway, thank you very much, and hopefully we'll catch up down the road and maybe have another chat. Okay. All right. Take care. Goodbye.
Bye.